Hello friends, I welcome you all to our webinar on Agile Estimation. I'm Saket Bansal. I run a company named Eisenbridge Consultancy, and we train, coach people on project management related topics. We train people for PMP as well as for various Agile certification. In this particular session, I have divided this particular webinar in 3 sections. We would be talking about Agile Estimation, the basic thing about what is this Agile is all about. Agile estimation is all about, and then we will get into the doing estimation, like story point versus ideal days, and then we will see that how we can really implement these things while working on projects. So this is how we start. Now before we start, I need to know a bit about you, and in a web interaction it becomes too difficult to know the audience. So I have created one poll which will help me to know where do you stand in your Agile journey. So let's start with a simple poll where I want to know that how much familiarity do you have with Agile based software development approach. So please select an option. This will help me to guide or to navigate while you are asking questions, so I can know the background and some kind of perception I can make about the query. So please quickly select the option. A few of you have not chosen, so please do that. And I am about to close the poll, so please pick your options now. Okay, so I'm closing it, and here I share the results with you, so you also know about your fellow audience. So majority of your fellow audience are aware of Agile. They are using Agile in their software, in their daily life. 30% of the people are reading about it, and we do have 15% participants who are very new to the Agile. So majority is kind of aware. I can take that. Good. So that will help us to focus on the areas according to your skill level or a proficiency level. So let's talk about what is this Agile estimation is all about. Now, a few things about the webinar. After each section, I will take a Q&A break. So whenever you have a query related to a given section, please keep them posting on your interface where you have a chat/question box, and I will look at them once I am done with a particular section. So after finishing the Agile estimation segment, I will look at your queries. Now, what is estimation? So whenever I go for estimation related training to the organizations, I find audience coming up with an expectation that after this particular training, they will become a very good estimator. They will start forecasting the project end date and project cost with very high accuracy. Now, estimation is all about approximation. Even Oxford Dictionary talks about that it's an approximate judgment. It's a prediction on the basis of our knowledge, on the basis of our skill, we think this is going to be the most likely true. Now, estimation in our software projects is primarily dealing with how much and how long. Like how long this particular project will last, how much dollar cost there would be, that becomes the primary primary question in our estimation. Now, do you think that we have a key where we can identify the answer to these particular queries? It's difficult. So whenever people come to my class, in my estimation class, I first tell them that there is no magical formula to drive the project end date and project cost. It is all about trying, making some judgment, and correcting your judgment periodically on the basis of learning you do in your project. Now, you might have seen, many of you are already PMP certified, you might have seen the cone of uncertainty. And this cone of uncertainty talks about that if you do an estimation at the earlier stage of your project, you will have higher errors. So many of you might be using the term rough order of magnitude estimate. So the estimate which you do at the initial stage will have high errors. As you move inside your project, you will know more and more about the project, and at that particular phases, at that particular stages, whenever you re-estimate, your accuracy starts increasing. Now, how it is happening, why it is happening? So primarily, estimations are driven by how well you know the problem domain. So do you know what is needed? Do you know the requirement well? And the second dimension comes about how well you know your team, your tools. So once you start knowing the requirement, your goals, your targets well, and at the same time you also start knowing about your team, about the productivity of your team members, the tools which you are using, how the .NET is behaving. So once you know about them, your the accuracy level will start increasing. Now, when we start doing estimation, primarily our estimation is driven by when can we deliver it. So when management, as a project manager or as a team leader, when some senior manager or sponsor is asking you, when can we deliver it, he is primarily interested in knowing how much time it will take and what would be the cost. Now, for you to giving that answer is difficult. Yeah, a lot of time when we are at a ROM level, we may end up using some reference as an analogous estimate, and we may end up giving some broad number even at that level. But in general, we end up calculating the effort. The effort is a measurement of like how many man days work is there, how many man hour work is there. So in the effort calculation, we calculate traditionally by breaking the work into multiple small manageable components. In our PMP language, we use the term work breakdown structure, and further we divided the work breakdown structure in activities. And we ask people, we calculate that how much hours, how many days they will take to do that particular activity. So if we do that, we are calculating effort. It may result in telling us that it's 100 man days work. Now it all depends how many mans you are putting or resources you are putting, or and what are the dependency and business rules are involved. On that basis you calculate the duration. The duration is talking about at which particular date this particular project can finish. Now the problem with effort level estimation is, if the same project is given to the two teams, one team may estimate 100 man days, the another team may estimate 120 man days, and both of the team may end up doing in 110 man days. Now when the manager is comparing, or at a monitoring level, when you are comparing these two teams, you may think that team A, who has done the estimation of 100 man days, performed bad because they produced the software they consumed more number of days than their initial estimate. The team B, who estimated 120 days, was the great one because they did it in 10 days in advance. But at the end, both of them delivered the same software. Their productivity was same, only the estimation was different. Now, in order to resolve that particular problem, there was a concept called sizing. So let's start separating the effort from the size. Now, it's easy to measure the dimension of a screen. It's easy to measure a dimension or a weight of some goods, but a software sizing is difficult. So there are various sizing models. You may have heard about a model called function point. Now function point sizing model gives us a solution in that, where by using the external attribute of that particular software, we calculate the size of it. Like how many elements are there on the screen, what kind of logical files are getting used while performing an operation. So these kind of attributes were used to calculate the size of the software. Now in Agile, we are calculating size, but by using a different approach, which is called story point and ideal days. So the estimation process starts from, first, traditionally we calculate the size by using some model, be it function point or be it use case point. On the basis of size, and we take an historical productivity of our organization, we calculate effort. So usually once the organization starts getting a maturity level, they stop estimating in efforts. They start estimating in size, and then they take a productivity number, and effort becomes a calculated information rather than an estimated information. And after that, after calculating the effort, they look at the sequence, like design cannot be done till the time requirement is over, how I am going to deploy my resources in this particular project. So we look at resource calendar, we look at sequence of activities, and then we drive the duration. So that is how it was done traditionally in software development. So the same thing, if I summarize it, in traditional software development projects, we first calculate the size, then we use a productivity number. Productivity number could be looked at that one function point takes 13 hours in our organization. So that's a productivity number. So if I have 100 function point as a size, my software will take 100 multiplied by, say, 10 hours per function point, then 1000 hours. So if I have a productivity of 10 hours per function point and my size was 100 function point, I will say the total effort required for finishing this particular work is 1000 hours. 10 multiplied by 100. Now what would be the duration? Then we look at business logic. Then we look at when can we expect a sign off on the requirement? How much time the customer will take to approve the UAT? What are the external dependencies? What are the mandatory dependencies? And on that basis, we end up creating the critical path. Many of you have studied that critical path and network diagram in your PMP programs. So we calculate that, we make that particular graph, and then we come up with a duration. So that is how it is done in traditional projects. Now in Agile, we don't do such complicated calculations. We simplify the process. And while simplifying, first what we do, we remove the effort dependency calculation. We only talk about size, directly calculating duration. Now how this can happen? There are few assumptions which we take. In Agile project, since it's an adaptive lifecycle project, we talk about having a consistent team, a one team working throughout the project duration. Because in Agile, many of you already aware of, we talk about cross-functional rugby team rather than a relay race team where one function will perform their work and then second function will take the work after onwards. So that is the one assumption. Second assumption we talk about that team should be performing work at a consistent pace. So month on month, they should be producing similar amount of output. In practice, it varies in a range, but we expect that they should be producing similar amount of work. Now, with this simplification, we can talk about that if I have 100 story point and I am doing 10 story point per month, then I will take 10 months to finish the project. So in Agile project, we estimate the project in story points. So we can, and then we use a term called velocity. Now we can take an example of distance. So if I have to travel from one city to another city and the total distance of between these two cities is 400 kilometer and my speed of traveling is 20 kilometer per hour, then I know that I will take 20 hours to reach there. Because 400 is the total distance, my speed is 20 kilometer per hour, that is my velocity. So as a team in a car we are moving and this team is driving at the speed of 20 kilometer per hour. So they will take 20 hours to finish this particular distance. So that is how we simplify the project. We talk about give us the size and let us calculate how fast we can do the work, and then let us calculate how many iterations it will be taking. So the way I spoke about 20 kilometer per hour, in Agile we talk about X number of story points per iteration, and that is something which is called velocity, which is a team number rather than individual productivity. Now another thing which we should understand for Agile level estimation is, now traditionally we have been doing planning for the complete project at one go. In Agile we primarily focus on doing planning at multiple levels. So you may have a strategy, then there is a portfolio plan, then you may have a product roadmap which might be moving from 2 to 5 years, and this particular product roadmap will get achieved by way of series of releases. So release is a term which we use in Agile for something which is varying from 3 months to 12 months. So you need to make a long-term plan which is for release, which could be for 3 months, which could be for 6 months, maximum 1 year. And in this particular release, you would be doing multiple iterations. So iterations are 2 to 4 weeks are the typical iteration size. So what we do while doing an estimation, first we do a top level estimation. This top level estimation tells us that this amount of work can be done in next 6 months in this particular way. Since we are doing top level estimate, there could be errors or more errors. And this 6-month work is after that divided into 2 weeks iteration. And for every 2-week iteration, we elaborate the work at detail level, and that is called iteration level estimation. So while we are doing iteration level estimation, we get into the each and every activity. So you can visualize it, creating activity, identifying activity resources, and estimating them is done at the level of iteration planning. At the level of release planning, we don't break the work. You can think of that this is a higher level of work which is usually grouped in the form of features rather than the phases. So we have collection of features, collection of product backlog items, which we estimate at higher level. So when we are doing an estimation at higher level, we are focusing more on giving a visibility to the stakeholders for next 6 to 12 months as per our release timeline. When we are focusing on iteration, we are more concerned about how our team would be delivering week on weeks. So that becomes the focus. Now, it is a real implementation of rolling wave planning. In Agile, you might have read in your project management and PMP lessons that rolling wave planning is done when we elaborate the plan as we get into it, as we get more and more visibility about the project. And that is what we do in Agile. Agile plannings are purely rolling wave plannings, because in adaptive life cycle, that is the only thing which can work, because we are not clear what we have to do after 1 month. And that is why we are using adaptive life cycle. If we know what has to be done for next 6 months, we don't have to use adaptive life cycle. We can just use predictive life cycle, and which may not qualify for all these techniques. So how does it work? As I said that we have 2 levels of estimation. You will see a 1 level of estimation which is coming at a product backlog level, and that is called a story point level estimations. And once we create the sprint backlog during a sprint planning meeting, so we have a meeting before we start that small iteration. So I can simplify it in a way that we make a plan for 3 months or a long-term plan, and then we make a short-term plan for upcoming 2 weeks. So when we are making a short-term plan or a 2-week plan, we elaborate the item from our long-term plan. So our long-term plan is having some sizing at a product backlog level, which is a term which we use for collection of features in Scrum. And in our iteration plan, which is called a sprint planning meeting, there is a meeting in which we divide the complete selected product backlog item which we are thinking of delivering in these 2 weeks. So when we are doing short-term planning, we are not looking at what we have to do next month. No, we are only focusing on selecting the product backlog item for a given iteration and delivering it, and planning it before delivering it. So now this is our first Q&A break, and there is a question from Ashish, a long one, so I am trying to read it, so be patient with me. So let's say in a project of 12 months, we have 3 releases, each of 4 months. Okay. Now when we start the project, should we do upfront planning for all 3 releases in one go, or should we plan for first 2 releases, or should we plan first 1 release and then we proceed towards the end of first release? We should plan the second release like this. Great question. And primarily the Agile literature talks about having a product backlog and doing releases. So the term project is not that well elaborated. Now, depending upon our environment, it is recommended that you make a top level plan for the project. Now, even we are making a project plan and then we are making a release plan, the rigor and elaboration is done at a different level. So if there is an item which has to be done at after second release, you don't need to elaborate it more. You may have estimation for it, but at a top level. There is a term called last responsible movement. Now in Agile, now first we need to go with the format that we are working in adaptive lifecycle. Why we are following Agile? Why we are doing release by release delivery? Because we are not sure what we have to do after one release. If we are already sure that what the project is all about, we can visualize the complete 4 releases, then we are not using the prime essence of adaptive lifecycle. So since we are not aware of, but we do have some level of plan, we do want to deliver few things in a year, but we are not sure. The things may change as we do one release. So we start with a top level plan, but we should not be elaborating release 2, release 3, release 4, but they remain at a top level. Why we are not elaborating them? Because after doing the first release, you may have totally changed release 2 scope. And that is expected, and that is why we are not elaborating it. So the answer is you may start with a small top level plan which is not detailed enough, but a first release you may have a well elaborated plan. Now Ashutosh is asking that how we assume a consistent team and consistent pace, and that is the primary essence of Agile. So if you go to the fundamentals, it talks about rugby team. It does not talk about that we have a specialized designer, developers, and who are coming and going. So the prime essence is that we have a dedicated cross-functional team which is delivering this particular software, because that's a requirement of adaptive lifecycle. Okay, next question. We estimate the stories and story points, and each story is broken down into subtasks that is estimated in hours. Is there any connection between these two? So Vasudev, I will take this. Let's finish the second segment, because the first segment was just introducing Agile. So once we see the story point estimation, then I can talk about it, because the rest of the audience will not connect. So again, Ashutosh is asking about ideal days and what is ideal days. So that is a second segment which we would be referring to. Okay, so relationship between story point and man hours, I will take them. Okay, so I think many questions are going for the next segment only. Okay, so one thing I can pick from this particular question is the release and sprint release are the same thing? No, they are not. They are a different thing. So the block is appearing on the screen because I am taking questions. So that is how it is. So once I'm done with the questions, Anjali, it will get cleaned, because else I won't be able to see the questions. That is how it works. Okay, so the release and sprint are not the same. Now there is some problem. In Scrum, we do not have a defined thing called release, because in Scrum we talk about every sprint we deliver potentially shippable product in increment. So since we are delivering potentially shippable product increment, and it's up to the product owner which one he wants to release it to the market. So sprint is delivering potentially shippable product every time. But when we talk about release planning, this is a scenario where multiple iterations, sprints are contributing to some meaningful software. For example, you are developing a new software and you may not be able to deliver a running customer deliverable at the end of first sprint, which is a 2 weeks sprint. So what should you do? You should wait for 3 months before you deliver it to the end customer, because you want to have a minimum functionality ready, and that is called release. Okay, so some basic Agile questions. We can just look at our webinars or videos on Agile. So please look at them, else we will lose the main topic and it will become an introduction to Agile session. So I'm not getting into the details of basic Agile questions, and Ashutosh, and that is the reason, that is why we are not getting into the basic Agile questions. If you look at the 6 presentations which I have shared with you, many things will get clear to you. So let's focus on the estimation agenda. So I am moving ahead, and many of the questions which are related to the story point estimation and ideal days estimation will be covered in segment 2. So now, what is this story point estimation / ideal days estimation is all about? So in the first segment, I spoke about what is estimation per se. In this particular segment, we will talk about how do we do an estimation in Agile and what is this story point estimation is all about. Now, in Agile, the story point estimation is all about doing relative sizing. Now, rather than asking a developer, how many hours will you take to finish this particular requirement? Traditionally, what you do, you make an Excel sheet and you share that Excel sheet with the designer, developer, tester, and ask everybody to fill in how many hours they want in a given particular work. This is something we are not doing in Agile. We are taking a work as a one unit, and we are talking that, okay, if this screen is big, then the another screen or another requirement which we are talking about, does it look smaller than this or it looks bigger than this? So it is all about identifying what is small and what is big, and then ranking them into various ranks, you can say, and taking them as a size unit. So that is how the story point estimation is done. Now, just to simplify it further, if I ask you that I have a login screen, how complex it could be? Then I talk about that I am making a job portal, and I need a search screen where a job seeker can search a job by using keyword, salary, and geographical location. So these are the two requirements. And there is a third requirement. I want to see a report of number of jobs posted on my website. Now, if I ask you how many days you will take to deliver all these three, it may take long time. A team may take long time to agree to one particular number. But if I ask, out of these three, which one is the simplest, which one is the complex, and which one is the average, maybe you can do that ranking faster. And that is what the prime essence of relative ranking and story point estimation. Now, how do we give a number? How do we give a rank? This rank is primarily influenced by how big the task is. What kind of complexities are there? How much volume of work is there? Is there any uncertainty? On the basis of these factors, team has to give a rank to a given item. So you can visualize it that as a requirement manager, the role is called product owner, I am giving you 20 requirements. And all these 20 requirements, you are bucketizing them on the basis of how complex they are, how much work is there, how surely you can estimate them. And on this ranking, you are giving them some numbers. And these numbers are not about how many days they will take, how many hours they will take. If something is simple, to me as a poor developer, as a weak developer, I may think simple will take 10 days. Somebody else who is a smart developer, he may think that simple is a 1 hour work. But both of us think that this is the simplest requirement out of these 10. And that is the way of doing sizing in story points. Now, the simple, which was having a 1 unit in this particular scenario, is not directly getting proportionate to is it a 1 day work or a 1 hour work. Now, whenever you do this ranking, you should hold a basic math property. Means, if there is a one story which you have given a 10 rank, and there are another 2 stories which are of 5 rank, you should be able to think that these 5 and these 10 are of equal weight. Either team can do these 2 5 stories, or they can pick these 10 pointer stories. They will consume more or less similar amount of effort in doing it. So they should hold some basic math property. This is called estimating in story points. Now, there is another term which is used in Agile, which is called ideal days estimation. Now, what is this ideal days? Think about your traditional way of asking estimate numbers. You throw up the requirement to your team member and ask them how many hours you will take to finish this particular requirement. They give you a estimate. When they are giving an estimate, they are assuming that they don't have to wait for clarification which is expected from client. They don't have to wait for a server which is not yet ready from the hardware team or from an infrastructure team. They expect that whatever they need, everything would be available, then only they can do this work in this many hours. And that is called ideal days. So ideal days estimation is, think about how many days you will take to finish this particular work when the environment is ideal. Means this is the only thing you have to work on. You are not assigned to the multiple items. You are not getting any interruption. This is the only thing you are working on. And whatever you need, whatever clarification you need is already provided to you. So that is an ideal environment. Assuming that ideal environment, you tell your team to estimate time. And if you do that, that estimate is called ideal days estimate. Now the second question comes, okay, I have done an ideal days estimate. It's a one ideal day work. Does it mean it will get finished in one day? The answer is no. Why? Because your real work day is not ideal day. You will have many interruptions, many phone calls, many emails, many escalations, environmental issues. All these things will delay your work than the ideal days. And that is why the elapsed time is much longer than ideal time. Now, why are we estimating in ideal days when we know that elapsed time is going to be a much more than ideal days? We can directly estimate in elapsed time. That is something may come in your mind. But the problem is it's very difficult to estimate the elapsed time. You don't know that day it's going to rain or what kind of environment you will go through in that particular given week. It's always easier and stable to estimate in ideal days. But as a project estimator, we do take a factor. We may think that my team may take 2 calendar days to finish the one ideal day work. And gradually I want to improve it so that they can finish 1.5 ideal day work in 2 elapsed days or 2 calendar days. So that is how you can visualize it while executing the project. Now it's a favorite questions. Many keep asking me and many of you have been asking me while I was browsing the first section. What is the difference between story point and ideal days and all? Now you understand the basics of story point and ideal days. The difference is also very obvious. The story point is fast because it is relative thinking. I might be thinking a simple requirement may take 10 days. You might be thinking a simple requirement may take 1 day, but both of us agree that this is the simplest out of the track, out of this particular lot. So it's easier to agree. Now, that is the same problem with ideal days. My ideal days will not your ideal days. So you may think 1 ideal day work, I may think 10 ideal day work. Now, when we estimate in ideal days, it may also start creating some functional boundaries. I may start going back to estimating development time, design time, etc., which is not recommended. While doing estimation in story point, we focus as a one unit because we are just ranking them, and our team composition should drive the type of skills needed to finish that particular work. So doing estimation in story point helps us in driving the cross-functional behavior. But there is a problem. So whenever I play a story point exercise in my classes, people find it very difficult to estimate first few stories because till the time you have not made a definition of simple, it takes some time to drive out of this particular lot what could be the simple. So story point estimation sometimes become difficult initially, but as you have 10-15 stories estimated, it goes fast. Now, story point is a pure measurement of size. It does not think about what is an effort angle, like how much time it is needed. It is only thinking about, is it big, is it small? It's a size. Ideal days talk about it will take 2 days or it will take 3 days or it will take 5 days. So creates a feel of effort. But that also becomes an advantage for some time, because the people who are outside your team will be able to understand it well. Because if you say that this work will take 2 ideal days, they can still think of that this work can finish in 3 days. Rather than if you put that this story is a 2-story point. Now you don't know a 1-story point means how many hours, but yeah, this is a 2-story point work. Somebody outside from the team may not be able to understand what this story point mean to him, because he is primarily interested in when can this finish. So it sometimes becomes a problematic initially to communicate about it. Now story point, they do not decay with time. What does it mean? Same requirement you are estimating in the beginning of the project, and after doing 50% of the project, similar requirement if you are estimating in ideal days, your estimate may reduce, because you already have an experience, you already understand that this can be done faster now. Your new estimate would be different, expected to be far less than the previous estimate. But while you are doing in story point, if you have marked something rank 5 before, and if the new work is coming which looks like similar like old rank 5, it has to be a rank 5 only. So it does not decay with time. So what is the advantage of not decaying with the time? We can measure how are we improving in our velocity, how fast we are able to deliver now, because size is remaining as a constant thing. So earlier we were driving at the speed of 20 km per hour. Now we can drive at a 30 km per hour. That is something can come only when we keep the size separate from our time which we are spending on it. So these are the advantage and disadvantage. The final one, while using ideal days, the company may start focusing on where are we wasting time. So why are we taking 3 days in doing 1 ideal day work? So sometime organization may start focusing on creating the value stream and identifying where are these wastages and try to improve it. So that could be an advantage of ideal days. So theoretically, if you are doing PMI ACP, you need to understand both, but in practice, majority of team uses story point as an estimation tool. So they are using story point based estimation in agile projects. So that's the most frequently used estimation model. Second segment of Q&A, and I think many of the first segment queries will get answered here. So I am just checking the query block. First query which I said that I will be taking it at a later point, which was I think talking about is there a relationship between a story point and the amount of hours or time we spend for a given work. So that was one of things. Okay, so Ankur asked this question, that is there any relationship between story point estimate and man hours effort? Now there has to be some relationship in range. So for example, by looking back, once you are done with 2-3 iterations, you should be able to calculate that one story point usually take 6 to 12 hours. So and majority of one story point takes 8 hours. So rather than having a one number, but there should be some level of normalization at a mean value. And if we don't have it, then we don't get a feedback for our release. The goal of this sizing is we should be able to calculate the release end date. And that only can be calculated when we have this information. So there is a relationship. But not a linear relationship. So it's a range. So a one story point usually takes 6 to 12 hours. Majority of one story point take 8 hours. So that kind of relationship should converge as you move forward. Now second question from Ankur, how do we make sure that our initial story point estimate for a release are near to the actual estimate of the man hours required? Is it right estimate for a release? Now it is all about cone of uncertainty. And that is the same point I want to put, Ankur, that here we are talking about empirical process, where we are talking about adaptive life cycle. The accuracy of estimate is a direct function of how well you know the requirement, how well you know your people, how well you know your team. If you know that I have to deliver burger day in, day out, your estimation should be of an accuracy of say 99%. But if you don't know what I have to cook tomorrow, you think that you will be cooking some Indonesian food, but what it would be, you don't have an idea. Your estimation cannot be at 99% accuracy level. So as you go deeper in your project, your accuracy will start increasing. How does it improve? Because you started with an assumption that you would be doing 20 story point per iteration. That was your velocity number. But as you get deeper in your project, you know that our average velocity is coming 12 story point. Sometimes we produce 8 story point, and in the best case scenario, we produce 18 story point. So using these numbers, you can project the end date with a range. Now you may come up with a question that business doesn't work like that. In a business, we need a final end date, and that end date is committed to 100 people. Now, if you have that kind of end date, what do you do as a project manager? You end up putting contingency reserves. Project is again a project, be it traditional, be it agile. In both the cases, if somebody is asking you a 100% assured delivery date, you end up putting good amount of contingency reserve to make sure that happens. Now, I do have a poll where this particular question will get answered. So the Ashutosh is asking that, do we take a quality of resource in estimate? Since time is less, I'm not putting the poll, but the answer is no. As I said, estimation, when you are doing a story point, both of us were thinking it's a simple requirement. Now, simple for me was 10 days, simple for you was 1 day. So quality of resource was in my mind only, but while giving a number, it was just simple. So I'm just avoiding non-estimation queries. So some of you may not get the answers, please, just to make sure that we remain focused to this particular area. So as I said, ideal days is not equal to the actual work. So I think that answers your query. Now you may think that, okay, both of us has given simple. Now while there was one resource who was not that skilled, and there was another resource who was very skilled, for them the definition of simple was very different. So where do we take care of that difference? That we take care when we get into sprint level / iteration level estimate. So when we are doing a top level estimate, we don't get into the details who is working what and how much time this particular story will take, because we don't know who will work on it. But when we give a 2-week, 3-week time frame estimate, then if I am taking one story point, I will definitely ask for 10 days. And if you are taking one story point, you will definitely ask for only 1 day. Now, in a team, you should not have that big difference, but if it is there, on average, your total speed will start reducing. So your total speed would be less. Now, we have another question. Critical path is not described in Agile, but why not network diagram? Can be used iteration-wise to serve as a guidepost to know about hard logics of dependencies. Team can self-organize to select the task, if any, dependent on task. They can choose the task. Yes. So now when I was talking about that, yes, you should forget about critical path or schedule network diagram. The goal of that particular statement is we don't do it at an activity level, but we can do at a top level. If it helps you to visualize the dependencies in a format of network diagram, you can use it. There is no to it. Even you can use the Gantt chart for it. There could be, you can see the many agile team where they make an iteration as a one unit in a Gantt chart. So they don't elaborate the details of that particular iteration, but they still use the Gantt chart to communicate with the external stakeholder to show the external dependencies. So you can still use it for high-level dependencies and high-level visibility, but not for the detailed task. Now, another question, will a 5-story point take the same time after many iterations? Ideally not. So, ideally, our velocity should increase. So, from where this question is coming, when I said that the story point should not be decaying with time, it was like you had initial story was 5-pointer, you did it 1 month ago. Now after 3 months, there is a similar size thing. Should you take the same time? No, you should do it faster. And this should get reflected in the form of your increased velocity. So rather than telling that we are doing less work, or we are taking less time to do a 5-story point, we use the language, we do more story point per iteration. We are driving fast. So our velocity should improve iteration as we mature, as the impact of retrospective, as the improvement in our processes. So ideal days estimation can also be looked as an ideal hours estimate, Maleshwari, especially when we do a sprint level estimation. Now, Gauri has asked an interesting question, that is it a good practice to first do a story point estimate and then convert them into an ideal days? So I will change this. It is good practice first to do an story point estimation and then convert the 2 weeks plan into ideal hours. So when we do a second level of planning, we focus on given 2 weeks and we elaborate those 2 weeks item in hours. So we do an ideal hours estimate for our day-to-day work. We don't work on story point on day by day, but we use story point for our top level planning. On 2 weeks plan, we make it in hours. So once we are done with that 2-week work, we look at back in a same story point number. So for many of you, it might be becoming confusing. Think like, I started with a 3-story point work. I converted this 3-story point story into 30 hours. While doing sprint, I am only focusing on 30 hours. I am not thinking about what was the point number given to this particular work. Once my work is over, when I am planning the next iteration, I take it like last time I was able to do 3-point work. So when we talk about next long-term plan, next 3 months plan, we talk about how many point work you have done in a given sprint. But when I am planning doing thing in a given sprint, I am focusing on how many hours of work is there. Ashutosh, there is no formula like ERP project or the month. So Ashutosh was asking a question that I have a 55-man month project. Can I do it in Agile? Actually, this is not a criteria that should you do Agile for X man month project. The point is simple. Is it needing an adaptive life cycle or not? So we had a webinar on this particular topic, when to use Agile. So please look at that video. It will help you to visualize it. Now another question, do the Agile mandate to do a story point based estimation? The answer is no. Now it's an adaptive life cycle. You can do whichever way you want to do. But as I said, majority of the teams are using it because it makes good sense and it gives a fairly defined way of estimating uncertain items. So Agile as a concept, they don't recommend how to estimate. Even the Scrum does not recommend how to estimate. It's an estimation technique which is frequently or used by majority of the Agile team. Yes, Amit, project estimation or a release estimation and iteration estimations are different. So when you start, you need to start with story point estimate. When you get into the details, then only you do an hourly based estimate. So Ankur, as you are talking about what is recommended, way to start on an estimation, should we start with a story point or should we start with an hours? Better to start with a story point for your 3 months, 6 months plan. When you get into the iteration, elaborate into hours. So that is how it should be done. Okay, friends. So let's finish the third segment. And please, if you feel that I have not answered your question and it was relevant to estimation, please copy paste it again. I will take it. If I am missing something else, our forum is always there where we can have these kind of discussion. Okay, so I am just moving ahead with our final segment. So how do we do it? Now we understand that, yeah, there is a story point. It talks about simple, medium, large. So how to do it? How to drive a number? Do we have a software and we feed the stories? So Ashutosh was asking the question that should we feed the stories and then there is a software which it tells us this is this much point and etc. etc. So how do we do it? So this section talk about a doing part of it. Now primarily we are talking about a story point estimation here. Now how do we do it? First we need to make a scale number. I was talking about, yeah, we can bucketize them. We can say simple, average, complex, extra large, large. So there should be some numbers attached to it. So we can use a scale which should be a non-linear scale. Non-linear means if you have a small requirement, the gap could be less, like 1, 2, 3. But as the requirement is becoming bigger, the gap should increase to take care of uncertainty involved in that particular level. So you should have the Fibonacci series works well, like 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13. So such kind of gap series works well. So what I'm talking about, I'm saying that let us identify what all rank number we want to use in our estimation. What is our scale? Because software estimation is not like we don't have a technique where we can measure the software in grams. We measure it in tons. So after 1 ton, we only have a second ton. So here, first we need to identify those units, because we can't have a very precise size number. So it is recommended that you use a Fibonacci series or any non-linear series like 1, 2, 4, 8, etc., and agree on it that this is the series we are going to use, and this is how we are going to rank our stories. Now, for very big items, like there was a question, I guess, from Ankur, where he was asking that I have a project, and I have items which I would be doing after 6 months, after 9 months. Now, those items may be bigger than 13. They might be very big because you have not elaborated them now, because you are not sure you would be working on them or not, because things will change after 6 months. But you still need some way of showing the size of those elements. For them, you may have a big number. You may have a rank number like 20, 40, 100. So for the numbers, for the things which are coming in upcoming releases, which can be visualized well, you may use rank number like 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13. For the items which are not planned in this release, maybe coming in next subsequent releases, you may have a big number like 20, 40, 100. So you first agree on this scale. Now after that, you play a planning poker. This is a game which is an estimation game. What you do here is the person who has a requirement come up with a requirement, and the team members who are expected to estimate are having cards. Now what are these cards? These cards are having the same rank number attached or printed on it. So you have a 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13 printed on those cards. And product owner or a requirement guy is talking about, I have this requirement. What do you guys think? Like how much rank we should provide to this particular requirement? Now each estimator will think about it. So they get a time, say 30 seconds, depending upon the way you are playing. And in that particular time, they think of a number which they want to give it to that particular work. After that, Scrum Master facilitates and says, show the number. So everybody starts sharing that number. Now, if you have convergence, if you find that majority of you are agreeing to a 5 number, you may take the 5 and move forward. But if you find there are differences, somebody is thinking 1, few are thinking 5, and somebody is thinking 13. Then the people who are at extreme ends, they need to explain why they think it is 1 number, and other person should explain why he thinks it's a 13 number. Now with these explanations, product owner will clarify, no, you are thinking too extra. So the person who is thinking 13 might be thinking too many integrations, too many security checks. The person who owns the requirement tells, no, I don't need all those stuff. It's a fairly straightforward requirement. The person after hearing this may change the number. So we discuss, we resolve the differences, and finally we have an agreement on that particular rank. And we write that rank on that particular story and move forward. While we are giving this particular rank, we need to keep in mind whatever you have thought of while learning story points. It is all about complexity. It is all about how much work is there. It is all about relative sizing. If I have ranked something 5 before, if the next thing is also 5 looking similar, I should rank it the same. It has nothing to do with how much time I will take. No. Where does it fit in my bucket? Is it fitting at a 1 or is it fitting at a 7? A 1 developer may take more time, the another may take less time. That is why we have different kind of composition in a given team. So this is how the estimation is done using planning poker. So that was the final segment, and now I can take the Q&As, and these are my contact details. For your information, we run a forum.eisenbridge.com, and where you can post your any Agile PMI ACP related query. Just keep in mind, post one query in a one thread. And because many of the queries which I got today were not directly coming on estimation, I can understand that many of you were coming from a background where these things are a bit new. No problem. Let's use the forum and utilize the interaction. So you post your questions, we reply to it, and we will try to explain it as much we can. We do have a YouTube channel, youtube.com/eisenbridge, where we have more than 50 videos on Agile. And videos like talking about when to use Scrum, what is this Agile is all about, what are Agile principles, how Agile projects are different from traditional projects, what kind of projects are ideal for Agile, what are the role of product owner, Scrum Master, team, what is product backlog. All these are available. So you can watch about them. And they will provide you all the basic details about Agile. So you can get more than 20 hours of content from our YouTube channel on Agile related stuff. And good thing is, if you watch them, you can claim PDUs under category self-learning. So you have a 30 PDUs under that category. After watching it, you can even claim the PDUs. So final Q&A break. I know we have already overshooted our time box by 3 minutes, but I will just check few of the questions if we have and try to resolve them as much I can. Okay, so one PDU for this particular session. Then let me answer the most important question first. So you might have seen the activity ID, which would be coming from us as a thank you mail as well. In our LinkedIn forum also, the activity ID was posted. In all of our communication channels, the activity ID was there. So just go to pmi.org, log into your CCR and claim it under category A. Put an activity ID, rest of the things will come automatically. Now we have also written a blog on this, how to navigate each and every screen. So at our eisenbridge.com, we have a blog called How to Claim PDUs. It is a simple 5-4 steps. There are photographs of all those 5-4 steps. Just follow them, use the activity ID which is coming from there, you are done. And this one PDU you can apply for PMP as well as for PMI ACP. So I am done with that explanation at least. So yes, so Ashutosh is asking that is the planning poker is equivalent to a brainstorming? Yes, it is an equivalent to a brainstorming, and you can think like it's a wideband Delphi technique. So if you use a PMP language, it's a wideband Delphi technique where you get your individual time where you think about a number and then you brainstorm about it. So it's like modified brainstorming where the individual time is also allocated. So that's it. Okay, so forum link is I have posted at a website. It is, again, I am typing it here. It's a forum.eisenbridge.com. So I'm sending it to all. Please register yourself and be part of it. You can follow our Twitter feed also. So there also you can get this particular forum link. Prachi, please post the forum link and activity ID on our Twitter. So if you follow Twitter hashtag EisenAgile, you will get an activity ID now only. My friend will post it, and you will also get important links like forum link or a YouTube link there. So you can just pick it from there. So I know many of you are still asking many questions. I understand, but we need to respect the time box as well, because in Agile you always talk about do things in iterations. I'm taking the final question, which looks like an interesting one. So in Agile we don't estimate each individual task or activity in terms of days. Instead, we estimate Agile team velocity per sprint. Yes, Krishnamurthy, yes and wrong. The answer is that we do a top level estimate where we estimate the team's velocity, okay, and when we do a sprint level estimation, we do each and every activity based estimate, but we don't necessarily allocate activity to an individual during sprint planning, but if required we can do that. So there are two levels of estimation. One we are doing for a top level where we use the story points and we talk about average speeds. We don't talk about how much per kilometer we will do. So that is velocity estimate and top level estimate for a sprint or for a release. But when we get into the 2 weeks thing, then we forget about the average thing. We get into the details. So we elaborate them and move forward. So Ashutosh is asking that, take my final question, like traditional in Agile, customer sign off is also required, or move ahead where we do have estimate in it. See, it all depending upon your environment. As far as Agile principle is concerned, less sign off, more collaboration. So people, customer and developer should be sitting together and developing things. Now, but if you are implementing Agile in an outsourcing environment, you may have a sign off process. But the sign off process are customized. They work very differently in Agile type of project. If they work in a traditional format, then you are not adaptive. Because sign off means I think that I am not going to change. So that is the primary thing. So please do look at a video which talks about when to use Agile. That will resolve many of the queries. Thank you, friends. Thanks for joining in. And for any queries, please follow the forum. Do watch our additional videos on YouTube, so you will get the basic structure. Thank you.